We're now recording. Topic is housing, and the timer has started.
My name is Sartaj. I'm new to town. I have a business here. Regarding housing, I would like to see more affordable housing. My bad luck has been that everywhere I go, the housing prices go up. So the months after we arrived here, they're too high for us at our age. I have a need for an employee at my store, and I haven't had trouble finding somebody here, but people in Toronto that worked for me are interested in moving here, but housing is an issue. There's some young people here that I've met that, I could hire sometimes, but housing has been an issue for them, and they've been trying to figure out where to go. So, and I think healthy communities are where there's different types of housing, co-op housing, so different price range, and where people of different economic levels live together. Almost. Oh, and then, for example, when I was living in Forest Hill Village in Toronto, and there was a co-op housing, there was a housing for people that was, affordable, as well, like apartments and low-rise apartments, as well as very high-end places. Thank you.
Okay. Gabriel?
I'm going to pass for now. Maybe if this time after, I'll be happy to add
Okay. Ken?
Okay, housing, my favorite topic as well. There is a real need in this community for not single-family homes, luxury condos, or high-end rentals. There's a crisis need for apartments that are affordable. Affordable being that definition of 30% of your income, which means that a lot of people that work minimum wage, they can perhaps afford an apartment at about $800, $850. I've been told by a developer in the city that no developer can make a profit unless they charge $1,200 for one bedroom. And I think that that's a problem. I have followed city council very closely since I got here, and despite the fact that affordable living is in one of the key strategies here, I've seen approvals of single family homes, luxury condos, everything else, but I haven't seen the political will to actually get something built. Britannia is a start. But it's still not shovels in the ground. We're waiting for some of those things to come in. I think the affordable housing issue needs to be thought of as finding solutions that are out of the box, like people sharing places, tiny homes, anything that you can do to get people housed. We have 100+ homeless in the city, and there are people who are sleeping on the streets because there's no housing. And
I've never seen that, sorry.
Well, you won't see it because they hide. If you look by Sobeys, if you look in the woods, if you look in some other places, they've done an enumeration, and it's 100+, and we should be taking care of our own citizens. So this is a crisis of major proportions in the city, and until we start doing something with the housing, it's not going to get better. The City Hall and City Council can do a lot of things and offer all kinds of incentives, start building up, start building density, start building in the core, outside the core, that kind of thing. And my 10 seconds is up, and that's good enough.
Okay. Thank you. Frank?
Okay, well, again, I said this in an earlier meeting. I came in here thinking it was solutions-based and not pointing out the problems, but coming up with solutions. And I think the solution to some of our housing problems, certainly not all, and none of them are simple, and getting developers to build affordable is not an easy task. But the laws have changed a little bit over the years with the zoning, where every single and even semi-detached dwelling is allowed to create a granny suite. And that's been in place legal for, I don't know, I wish Danielle was in this one, but for a year or two now. Is that
Well, we
right?
passed the official plan.
Yeah.
That we just have to get all the zoning changes.
So I think we have to promote that to the community and maybe convince people that they, a retired couple like myself, in a way, we could create a granny suite if we had the room in our house. We don't have a very big house, but there's there's a lot of houses that would be quite possible, and it would be a source of income for those people, and maybe help them stay there longer too. And I think that would be a solution to a couple of different problems. But I don't think people are fully aware, so I think there's an educational factor there that we could find some ways to promote that and try to convince some people that, hey, you know, this might not be a bad idea. It might really help you and it'll help somebody else. So I'm going to stop at that one there now because I think that's a pretty full plate, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Christine. I am a young individual who moved here about 3 years ago after I graduated film school, college. Every time I have a conversation with someone else, they always ask, oh, were you born and raised here? And I'm that one person who says, no, actually, I found myself here, very serendipitous, but I feel so fortunate because I do think Stratford is a very unique, perfect town that has all this potential. It has all the right colors to make this beautiful masterpiece of a painting to live. But yeah, housing-wise, for me to want to be able to succeed and be with like the entrepreneurs and the innovators that are here, I need to be able to live here and actually enjoy the town instead of just spending all my time working to afford the houses. Just this past year, I was able to rent a house, to have my own office in there, but I was struggling. At one point, I had 4 jobs just to pay for the rent there, which was fine. It was a great practice to work hard, but for all the Airbnbs that are here to rent out to tourists, why can't we switch those over and maybe make an incentive for those Airbnbers to rent out the rooms during the year for the students going to the campus so they don't have to be bused here every day and want to go back every day. Have that option so people, young people and even older people, to like be here year round. Like there's the houses, there's the space. I'm currently lucky enough to have found somebody who wanted to rent out the room. They own the entire house, but they have 2 rooms that they're not using. Why not make a profit? Why not build that community by living with your neighbor, be housemates, making that, using our tourists and for the year round as an idea, maybe. Thank you.
Okay. Next.
I don't know much about what's not available for apartments because I do own my home. I also have a B&B in my home, and I choose to do a B&B because I prefer short-term rental. So that's just a preference. I happen to, my partner lives right in beside Stratford Housing, and to be honest, as I see how they do not take care of the properties, I've seen properties that the lawns aren't mowed, they're sitting out during the day, they're making noise, their kids are running all over the place. I'm just putting that other side out there. I know that that's not everyone, but there is affordable housing. Even when I rented, I always had private ownership. I would always take care of my property, and I'm lucky to own, but I did rent. I was a single mother. I'm not I worked hard to get where I'm getting where I am. So that's another side that I just feel like it's hard when people do want to make that money through short-term rental to say, okay, I'm just going to give that up to have someone in here all the time. It's not what everybody wants. So I don't know what the solution is. I really, really don't. But there's the other side of the story as well. 100%.
Okay.
Okay. I was thankful for this wonderful topic. I was about to thank you for you guys, committee and council here. Oh, the topic about housing is very, especially I'm working with newcomers. Okay, there are so many jobs here, so many jobs. Where to stay? Okay, we are renting for them. They get a job here. They're living in Mitchell. Okay, there's no transport. Okay, how do you go there? Okay, Tavistock, Woodstock, that's our business. I'm struggling every single day for new family. There's Canadian, they want to live because there's a lot of jobs here. Where to get house? Of course, we are not ready because we're promoting so many things about Stratford. Newcomers, Stratford growing. We are not competing with Mitchell. We are competing with international. We are international people here. Stratford is international. we are very well known. Tourism is the destination of tourism. I don't know. It takes long time about Woody. Say I know Woody just running around in town. You meet with homelessness people, especially homeless. About homeless, I don't want to see Canadians to be homeless. There are a lot of homeless people sleeping under church. I know them. Sometimes they want to sleep in my office. No, I can't to sleep there. Okay, female is okay. They have female. What about male shelter? I send them to London, to Kitchener. It is for me. I don't feel shame. It's my communities. I will try to. A couple of family they just created a garage, 2 bedroom. This is I'm telling you. Some of families living with 1 bedroom, 3 or 4 people. So I'm telling you.
Thank you. Garcia. Oh, Bonnie?
Hi. Housing is, you hear it all the time in the city that we need affordable housing. Like affordable means that you shouldn't be paying more than 30% of your income on your rent. And the city does have programs where they offer, and it's very hard for anybody to accept it. We had a program where they paid up to $74,000 per unit and not one person applied. We couldn't get the developers to apply. We were very lucky with Pool. When they were doing their apartment on St. Vincent Street, they agreed to work with the city, because you got to sign a 25-year lease that the houses stay affordable, the units stay affordable in the apartments, and that's a big commitment on behalf of developers that are developing the city. And so we were able to get 15 there, and then community living built some, and it's just, we've had public open houses and invited developers in, and we've had the guys come from London that have huge developments trying to get the developers motivated here and trying to get them to, we do have a clause where when they're building new developments, it has to be inclusive, so they have to have single homes, semis, townhouses, apart. It has to try to be inclusive so that it's not all just single homes, and they can. So you'll see that on McCarthy. It's all kinds of different homes are being developed out there. So they do have that. We've asked staff to look into if there are any other things where we can not force them, but try to gently guide them along to help build affordable, because you hear all the time that there's no place. Like sometimes on Facebook you hear there's no place, and then you'll have somebody that lists the whole thing of where to get them. And it's really important that people have an affordable place to live.
So Bonnie, do you think that's communication then? That somehow they're not getting the
Thank you.
information?
Sorry, going on to Marianne.
So I have perhaps a slightly different perspective. I own a real estate brokerage, so I'm in the real estate market in Stratford. And all of your concerns are real, and even as a real estate brokerage, we see that all the time. We constantly have people calling us looking for rental accommodations, and we don't do residential property management. But I think that at the core of this, you have to remember that real estate is an investment. So unless you can create a situation where there's opportunity to make money, you're never going to get people to develop anything unless it's advantageous to them. And you also always have to have a balance of supply and demand. So if there's, in our market, there's way more demand than there is supply. And so that's why you see the imbalance. So what I see as perhaps some grassroots solution, and Frank, your comment was interesting to me because our experience is that those plan amendments that you're talking about are not in fact in place. So I cannot actually, as far as I understand for building and planning, just put that secondary suite. It's coming, but it's not here now. And it needs to get here, and it needs to get here quickly, because our experience with building and planning is that the rules in this town for converting rental accommodations are so incredibly archaic and tight that we have a problem with supply. We need to be able to create more supply to meet the demand, and that would make a huge difference. And so if you had more rental units available, guess what? You'd have more supply. Rental prices would go down because you've got more options and you've got to remain competitive. So if you can tip that supply and demand, which can be done in this community, but the city's going to have a big role in that in making things more lenient And I also think that the Residential Tenancies Act can be in some ways counterproductive
Oh, it is.
because it also, as residential, as tenant legislation,
Thank you.
yes.
I'm sorry.
So I guess on the, I'd like to provide some, what I hope for, what's great about this conversation, I was in the economy group, and now I've come up with, a solution I'd like to propose to you because of that, that made me start thinking. And number one is, I'd really like to know the data. So how many rentals do we have in the city? How many houses do we have in the city? Let's start with the data. And maybe we have that, maybe we don't. But it'd be nice to have a registry, or a rental registry or something.
All the homes are
But
just
just let me finish.
Okay.
So I just like to have, a registry so we know what the stock is within the city. Number two, Marion said about, it's an easy equation, demand is greater than supply. We don't have enough housing stock in this community, which ultimately affects, there's no room at the end. We can't attract people to come here and work here. So it's a huge problem. So I don't think it's just renting the basement out of my house. That would definitely be, part of it. I think we got this ass backward with this community hub. I think we need to be looking at a neighborhood. We should be creating a neighborhood, not a community hub. So the neighborhood should be created, so we start looking at high intensity. Let's start looking at it the right way. So we build 10-story buildings. Let's intensify our downtown. Let's show that we're a city that doesn't want to go out to the farmlands, which we have the best fertile land. So let's stop doing that. What happens if we go up 10 stories? I think it's really important. We have land in some of these properties, and then we can talk about the community hub. So how do we get the more value for those condos or those apartments that are going to be rented or being sold? Because we provide amenities. So we start doing the YMCA, and we do all the things that everybody wants as residents of this community. But let's talk about a neighborhood. In Toronto, they're talking, and I hate to bring up Toronto, but in some cities they're looking at like Google's going into Toronto and saying, we want to build a neighborhood. Here we are as a community. We have land. Let's bloody build a neighborhood. We can do whatever we want with it. We can build high intensity. We can do all sorts of things with it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's very important update the population of the city, because when you come from everywhere here in Stratford, you see 30,000 people. I came here 1 year ago, and then I saw the time come people to Stratford, leave people to Stratford at the same number, and then sometimes you can figure out exactly is it short enough for the amount of people we have living here. I think we have more the 30,000 people here in Stratford. Then when you put this in, people can see it, you can figure out, oh, we gotta do something. Because if we stay like for 5 years, 10 years with the same amount of person, and then you don't give the right information to what's going on in the city, I think that the city right now have to be update the population, update what they say, what everybody says, how many houses or how many rooms we have, and figure out what is the basic that we can do for people to live like normal human. Thank you.
Okay. We have 2 minutes left, so there's time for one more speaker.
You didn't speak.
Oh, you did? Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't speak the first
Yeah.
time. Yes.
No
So let's go.
So, in terms of housing, it's a very, very difficult issue for governments, municipal, federal, or provincial, to, in terms, control or, put any sort of legislation in order. Because, well, you'll see this for pricing comparisons to Stratford and St. Mary's. Prices here reflect the value of living here. It reflects the market up here as well. The government cannot control the market. It's the people that control the market. If you want affordable housing, 30% of your, 30% of your annual wage or your annual earnings, you're gonna have to work hard to earn 30% that's gonna pay for housing here. But that's, the work ethic that, you need to have to get a house if you really want one. If you really want one, you have to work to get it. Or you have to move to St. Mary's. Either way, it's hard to, housing is such a hard topic that the government can't control it. And if people are complaining about housing, well, I'm sorry, it's the market that controls it. Please, we have places in St. Mary's, Mitchell, that are more affordable. Go there and stop complaining. There are, of course, homeless people who do need help. And there are,
Sorry, you're a young conservative, aren't you?
yes.
I don't disagree
agree with what you're saying, but not with the.
Please don't interrupt.
No,
Go
no, no,
ahead.
absolutely, I like the input. But the market, the people control the market and the government does not.
Okay.
We can provide help to, people who are poor or homeless, but not to people who just don't want to put 30, 40, or 40, 50% of their annual earnings into housing.
Thank you. The session is up.
I really want to throw in 2 more quickies because I did have a couple of solutions. The city has land, give it to some developers to develop affordable rentals.
Are we cutting this off at 20 minutes? Or,
Well, what time is it, 20 after now?
yeah, it's 20
5
after.
minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes.
Or 5 minutes more? Okay.
We got 5 minutes to take our spot if you want.
The other thing is that in a city close to us, they're giving people $2,500 grants from city coffers to help them develop apartments so that they can actually share apartments in their house. So if people want to do Airbnb, you can also do an apartment. So there are things cities can do. They can also give developers cuts on permits. They can fast track some things. There's a whole bunch of things that cities can do. They just choose not to.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. This is that most of our rental company, they busy in what? The owner, they renting house, big building, busy in kitchen or busy in Waterloo, right? And then we were applying for manager, some newcomer, there is no any names in Google, or maybe from Africa or from Russia, there is no any bank record, right? They struggle, most of them get our when you apply for anything, they didn't confirm, right? We didn't get like proof, reference. And we struggle, most of our newcomers, they didn't give house to rent, even, right? And that's why it's happening. For me, for most of newcomers, I'm like business, I don't know, I'm just going I signed for a lot of people outside. We struggle.
It's a real struggle everywhere. It is.
Did you have anything you wanted to say now?
No, I was just, I grew up in Stratford actually, and I went to school for 10 years and lived there in Toronto for a time. I come back and none of my friends from high school are here. Absolutely none of them. They're all out west or Alberta or Calgary, what have you, and I think it's a matter of if you build it, it will come. You say that the market influences, what goes on, but we are the market. It's people. Build it, then it will come. If there's a place for you to lay your head, don't tell me that it's empty. And while we're mentioning that there are houses that you would like to take record of, the most important is I would be curious to know how many of them are sitting empty, and what we can do with that. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. End the session. Thank you for participating.
I recognize that somebody was sitting beside him.
Enjoy your trip.
Oh, thank you. I
You know what's sarcastic? You're smart, that Lonnie Henderson.
Oh, yeah. 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 I appreciate
That was pretty cool.
the information. Oh, yeah.
Turn up the timer.